Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Love Encompassed podcast. I am your host, Victoria.
And Phil, of course, I am here.
Of course. Who else would it be?
Yeah, that's a good point. Better be me.
Yes. So today, what are we talking about today, babe?
We're talking about Valentine's Day because it's Valentine's Day. And hopefully, guys, if you're listening to this right now, you just didn't realize it was Valentine's Day. And now you have to run to the store as quick as humanly possible to grab flowers.
And listen, we're not judging because I think we may have all been there. I'm not going to throw everybody in the boat, but I know I have been there. And then, you're like scrambling trying to find the good flowers or the good candy or the good cards. And then the next thing you know, you're like, dang it, why didn't I do this sooner? But life happens. Our schedule sometimes can get away. That's why we got to make sure we plan ahead.
Yeah, and just a little tip. If you can't get to the store, just grab some construction paper and loose leaf paper and make a homemade card.
But don't make it look homemade, though, because I think we know. It's one thing to be like, oh, man, that was really thoughtful. You made me a gift versus my husband made me a gift that looked like my 5-year-old made me a gift.
That's fair. So today, with it being Valentine's Day, we're excited because we're going to be talking about love.
Yes.
It's the best thing. So we've had great feedback from everybody. Thank you so much for all the text messages, the DMs, everything else. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for doing that.
Absolutely. And it helps us to know that, we're helping somebody out there. So even if it's just one person or one couple, then goal accomplished. And if it's just, you guys just are enjoying and having fun, goal accomplished.
Yeah. So today we're very excited because it is Valentine's Day. Mm-hmm. And the cool thing about Valentine's, we have to tell them an interesting story. So when we first got together, I was not a big Valentine's Day person.
Really?
Yeah. Because remember, I wouldn't really get anything for Valentine's Day. And you're like, hey, dude, I still want stuff for Valentine's Day. Because I would get flowers and stuff. Maybe that's something I have
so blocked out of my mind that I don't remember.
Because I would get flowers all the time on a random basis.
Yes.
And then on Valentine's Day, you're like, hey, it's still cool. Like, you can still get me something for Valentine's Day. Do you remember that?
I think I do because, which is a positive.
Well, it wasn't anyone else.
No,
I know that much.
No, I'm not saying that. I mean, first of all, we've been together for a long, long time. So it's not like I remember every little thing. But I think, and this is like positive for you, that you have done such a good job with showering me with gifts and like little things that shows that you're being thoughtful, that has maybe blocked out the memory of you.
Yeah.
Not get me anything.
That's awesome. That's a little tip, guys. Be so good that they block out all the negative.
Let
tip
the
number one on
outweigh the negatives.
Tip number one on Valentine's Day.
But I do remember when Valentine's Day, I felt like the scum beneath a shoe. You had got me something for Valentine's Day, and it was only because Valentine. Is it Valentine's or Valentine?
Valentine's Day. S. I think it has an S.
Okay, it doesn't matter. Anyways, so because you would always say like, "Oh, you ain't got to give me nothing." Oh, whatever. And so this one particular Valentine's Day, I didn't get you anything.
I remember this Valentine's Day.
I didn't get you anything. I felt like you set me up. But no, I didn't get you anything. And like later that day, I could like tell you were like off. And I was like, what's good? What's wrong? And you were like, I don't know, man.
Would have been nice.
Which I'm just like, but you said you were good.
A little love would have been nice.
Which goes to show you, if they say they're good and don't get me nothing, don't do it.
Yes, still get them something.
And so I went out and I made like an intentional effort to like get you a card and get you like your favorite things that you really,
you got
really
me a box of Cheez-Its.
Which hold on, don't judge me, guys. He loves Cheez-Its.
Yeah, it was a great gift.
Okay.
It was probably the best gift.
So yeah, I'm just saying, I was being thoughtful with mine.
Yes.
But
you have to know your person.
Yeah.
Right? And it's one of the things like on Valentine's Day that we're going to talk about is one thing we love is the 5 love languages. Like love language.
Yeah.
What are people's love languages? What is your spouse? Or really, it doesn't. Here's the crazy thing is, really doesn't even have to be your spouse.
Yeah, that is very true. Because
it can be your kids.
Yeah, your kids.
your parents,
Yeah.
whoever. What's somebody's love language?
Yeah.
So explain a little bit of love language, like even with us.
Yeah.
So explain a little bit of love language.
Yeah. So the way I understand the love language, obviously, it's an actual book called The 5 Love Languages, and you can go online and you can actually take a test to see what your love language is. But basically, the way I understand it to be is that you're learning yourself as well as the person you're in a relationship with, or who you love, like the way they feel most loved. So maybe it's if it's acts of service. I may not remember all the 5. It's like acts of service, quality time, physical touch,
words of affirmation. And there's one more. It is, can't remember. Acts of service, words of affirmation, physical touch. I can't remember.
I can't think of the other one. I know.
Well, that's because we're not.
It's all right. I'm gonna Google it while you.
Yeah. So
talk about it.
Here's the thing: is we probably don't remember what it is because neither one of us are those. So we're like, who cares about that? Who cares about that love language? It's not ours. So who cares? Which is not how you do the 5 love languages. So here's the cool thing about the 5 love languages. It is really about how you receive love, right? And it's not how we're sometimes in the 5 love languages, if we're not careful, we will give how we receive, but that's not how the other person actually receives love.
Yes. And so before you go farther into that, I found it. I went and looked it up online. The 5 different ways to receive love, or whatever your love language would be, is words of affirmation, acts of service, receiving gifts, quality time, and physical touch.
Receiving gifts. That's the one we missed.
Yeah.
And that would have been good if Cheez-Its would have been, if I would have, who knew that was the one?
Yeah.
But anyway, so on 5 love languages, it is that way, right? It's how you receive love.
Yes. Yes. And it's important to know what your love language or languages are, as well as whoever you're in a relationship with, whether it be your spouse or your children or a friend or whomever, because you want to make sure that you're speaking to the very thing that makes them feel loved the most, so because for example, if we know someone who may have quality time and words of affirmation, I'm not going to constantly buy them gifts and constantly hug on them if that's not how they, feel their most love.
Yeah. If somebody doesn't like to be hugged, you probably don't want to show physical touch.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
and let's clear up physical touch for a second, because most guys will immediately say they are physical touch because of the bedroom. They're like, you know what? I'm physical touch. I already know it.
Yeah.
That's not what physical touch. It is part of it, but it's not what physical touch is.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a hug. It could be a pat on the back. It could be some form of physically touching someone, holding hands, whatever that may be for you, and what that looks like to make you feel like, man, they really love me, or like the quality time. Hey, because we spoke in the last episode. That was mine, the quality time. And it's not just, hey, you're in the room with me. It is, I'm listening to what you're saying. I'm not really distracted I'm not trying to multitask you, little things like that.
Yeah, and it's really, when you're talking about love and these 5 love languages, it's not, we're using 5 love languages because we took the test, we went through it all, and it's a big thing. We do believe in it 100%. But there's so many different ways of showing love, as far as not just in these love languages. You can be compassionate.
Yeah.
You can be all kinds of things to people in your communication. We talked in one of our podcasts about communication, and it's like you can show love even how you communicate to somebody.
Oh, for sure. Just because you're, it's not like a to-do list. Okay, I hugged you. That's your physical touch. And I said hi without watching TV. All right, now the other 24 hours of the day, I'm not going to do anything. But because I did those things, you should feel loved.
Yes. And love, sometimes we look at it too, is kind of like, I can sometimes tell Victoria, it's like, well, I bought you flowers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That shows I love you. And she's like, cool, I got flowers that day, which is thoughtful.
Yes.
It's thoughtful.
Yes.
but not what I'm dealing with right now.
Well, not just that, but sometimes I think if you're not careful, you can get in the monotonous of how you give gifts, that it kind of loses its value of the gift that you're giving, if that makes sense. Like, I appreciate the flowers. Thank you for the flowers. But if if that's the well that you constantly go to, eventually kind of loses its value. Like, I don't think, for me, it's not so much like, yes, receiving flowers. And I don't know if all my ladies feel this way, but for me, I think it's more so the thoughtfulness behind the gift. Yeah. Not so much the gift in itself.
Yeah, it's the being romantic.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sometimes.
No, but I think you are romantic. I do think you are. And let's talk about that, right? I think you are romantic. I think sometimes, life can happen and, you can get busy, whether it's kids or work or whatever. And so maybe sometimes those cylinders of the romance isn't firing.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, well, he's still romantic.
Somewhere.
Yeah. So it's like,
Well, here's the thing that you told me something when we first got together I loved is I used to open the door.
Yes.
And I still do.
Yes.
So I would open the door for her and she'd say, hey, listen, don't do this now and then stop doing it later.
Okay, so 2 reasons why I feel this way. And I think most women will feel this way. And maybe guys too. Like, we will go out of our way in the dating phases.
Yeah.
Or the stage, not phases,
100%.
but the dating stage, because you should keep dating each other, even outside of being married. Well, date your spouse. I'm saying, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay. So, got to clear that up.
Yeah. Clarity.
But I think, it's twofold. It's like, part of it is like, we go all out in the dating stages before we like go serious into the relationship. And so we become accustomed to a certain type of behavior, right?
That's good.
And so then as time goes by, and let's say you guys do, like we did, get married and whatever, and then I get life happens, we get busy, and so it may not happen as much. But then it's like, okay, let's not stop doing the things that I loved that you did. Don't get me used to something that you do and then just cold turkey it. Because then you start thinking, okay, were you doing that just to woo me?
Yes.
Wow.
No, I'm just kidding.
Are you doing that just to woo me? Or is that who you are and this is just busy right now?
Yeah.
And another reason why I said that to you, like, hey, are you just doing this? Because if you're not, this isn't who you are. Don't get this spoiled. Because I had seen, previous relationships and people would tell me, when I was single, like, oh, girl, yeah, they do this and do that, but, that's whatever. And I used to think, how awful is that?
Right.
Like, my gosh.
People stop being nice after they get married.
Like, that shouldn't happen.
Fantastic.
Like, I get life happens. But, like, don't throw away the things that, made me fall for you.
Yeah, 100%. And here's the thing too, is there is compromise within it, right? When we first got together, obviously it was me and you.
Yeah.
And so I would open the door but we do have this agreement. When it's cold outside,
don't even worry about it, bro.
Don't even worry about it.
Don't even worry about it.
It's not even worth it.
At this point, every man for himself, get in the car.
Get into the car. Spend your time hitting the key fob to get the door unlocked by the time we get there. Do not spend your time walking over there because I need the car heated up as quick as possible. This is Victoria. I need the car heated up as quick as possible so I can get warm.
Or, what she says is, love me, make sure that door is unlocked. So by the time I run from that store to this car, I want to be able to pop in the front seat and close the door to get out of the cold as quickly as possible. That is top tier for me.
And then when you start having kids, it really is every man for himself. You're just like, I don't even care about these kids now. It's too cold outside. That's my love language, is making sure I'm warm.
Because you're like, do kids, and I mean, obviously babies, they're all bundled up and they're in their, car seats. So that doesn't count. But the kids that walk, the toddlers, the littles, sometimes even like, our boys that are teenagers, like when they're walking and it's cold outside, it's like, do their skin not have any like cold receptors because they're walking so slowly. And you're like, hurry up and getting up in this car. It's cold. I hate the cold.
Or when they get into the car, they take forever with the car door open.
Yeah.
So it makes the car door cold. That has nothing to do with love. That's just a personal thing that we deal with.
This is not even cold outside. That makes me think of this one time when the cicadas were like strong. You know what I'm saying? And they were like flying. I hate bugs. Like, loathe them. And cicadas are like the predators of bugs to me. You know, the movie Predator is like, oh my gosh, right? And so I remember we were dropping the boys off at school for practice or something like that. And Brandon, our oldest, he sometimes moves slow. And so he leaves the door open, right? And the cicadas are flying. And I'm like, close the door. What are you thinking? You know, it's like, my gosh, child, are you aware of your surroundings?
Yeah, he's not. He moves at his own pace. But so let's give him some action things.
Yeah.
Right. Let's give you some action things with love. Right. We talked told some funny stories, everything else, but let's give you some action tips with love. Here's the thing. Whatever you start, you must maintain.
That's good. Say that again.
Whatever you start, you must maintain. So go back and think about, now this just isn't for married people, right? If you're single, listen to this as well. Have these conversations right off the bat, communicate, do those things. It also works with your kids. It works in friendships. It works in everywhere. Whatever you start, you must maintain. So make sure that if you're maybe right now you're listening to us, and let's just talk to married people for another quick second. Maybe you're listening to us right now and you think, man, our marriage isn't hitting like it used to, or it's not as passionate as it used to be. Here's what I would challenge you to do. Go back and do your first works over. Go back and pursue them like you pursued them before. You know what I mean? If women, let me talk to you for a second from a guy's standpoint.
Okay, let them know. Let us know.
Let me talk to you from a guy's standpoint. If you're always walking around your house in sweatpants, or you're walking...
I feel personally attacked. I feel personally attacked. We should feel comfortable in our home.
I'm talking to women
in
general.
I'm sorry. I'm taking myself out of this.
Yeah, take yourself out, or otherwise our next podcast will be on fighting. But women, if you're not taking care of yourself, as far as when you first were dating him, you were wearing makeup all the time. You made sure you look good. Now you just walk around random house coat. You got on some.
Just take me as I am. I'm just joking.
It's okay. And same way with guys. If you're like, well, she doesn't come on to me like she used to. Well, you may not have been taking care of the body like you used to be taking care of the body. Maybe put down the ho-hos for a minute and do some exercise. That's all I'm saying.
I'm going to speak on behalf of the ladies. We hear you. Here
it comes.
I'm going to own my part. Right? Because we talked about it last week. Owning our part in the situation. I can own up to the fact that I definitely did that,
What?
Yeah, I mean,
I was using a hypothetical.
Hey, listen, I know.
Ish.
Listen, let's just keep it real. We fall in love with the fact that they love us as is. You know what I'm saying? And we no warranty. And so for me, I think it was like, he thinks I'm beautiful even without makeup. Oh my gosh. And so it's like, I am comfortable in my... You created a safe space for me. You said a little bit too safe.
You blamed me. You said, I'm going to own my part. And then blame you for making it safe.
Okay, so real talk. Yes, I know I did that. I was like, make sure sis was always right. And then life happened. We had kids. And it was like, after dealing all day with said kids, like the last thing you thinking about is trying to doll yourself back up. And I had a friend at the time that really helped me kind of get back to finding myself in that, which was like, okay, Victoria, like, I get it. Like, kids, life, you're busy. And the last thing you want to think about is like, okay, now I'm supposed to look good for you. Okay. Wow. Really, I want to flip it. It's not so much looking good for you or them. It's doing it for yourself.
100%.
And so I had gotten in the rut of when my kids were younger, and then I kind of like climbed back out of it. And then I kind of got back in the rut again because I got comfortable being comfortable. But really it goes back into, like I was saying, and I think I spoke on this on the Instagram post I posted a while back, which was we cannot give from an empty cup. And so, yes, life happens. Yes, kids get busy. We can get busy with the kids or whatever, or we can get comfortable. But if we're not careful, we might find ourselves in a place where we are losing ourselves and stop investing in ourselves. So it's not so much we're doing it for them. It is important to do it for ourselves because, at the end of the day, like when I did get back in the rhythm of, okay, Victoria, I got to make sure my cup is full because I got to make sure that I'm good and I take time for myself. And then whatever's left over, not what's left over, but whatever's spilled over from being filled, like that's what everybody else gets to be blessed by. But if I am not valuing myself by taking the time out to making sure, maybe I paint my nails, or maybe, I don't wear sweatpants. Maybe I'm doing a cute lounge. Well, I'm not right. I don't think you're saying to wear like full on jeans or whatever the case is. I'm very much so about my leggings, but like make it cute.
Make it cute. Yeah. It's let me give you an example just so we're clear. Victoria used to have these sweatpants that said lacrosse on the back of them. She's never played lacrosse a day in her life. She knows nothing of the sport. And I hated these sweatpants so bad. And I just finally one day I cracked and I was just like, and she would wear them because she's like, they're comfortable, they're nice, they're easy, they're whatever.
They're easy to slide on.
Yeah. And just one day I was like, I can't take it anymore. You have got to get rid of these pants. They look freaking terrible. They're driving me nuts. And she's like, what?
Shocker. You didn't like the big lacrosse on the back of my butt.
You're my safe spot. You're my safe spot.
But that's
she
real.
Did. She
it was
got rid of
real.
them. We had to do an overhaul.
But he didn't come to me. But I think the way you approached it wasn't like you're no longer attractive.
No,
never approach your girl and say you're not attractive anymore.
No,
like,
it wasn't that at all.
Is a 1-2 punch in the face.
Yeah,
I don't condone violence though.
Well, I think the problem was, and it's just what you were talking about, right? I could see that you were slipping. And because you were slipping about how you felt about yourself, so it started to slip. And that's the thing about love, right? We're talking about love. It's Valentine's Day. You got Valentine's. Maybe you don't have a Valentine's. You have one next year, whatever it is. But the thing is, first is you have to love yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be okay with your flaws. You have to understand your flaws, not be defined by them, work on them. Of course, we all have them. But be in love with yourself.
Oh, my gosh, yeah. And I can honestly say, like, because I knew you were coming from a place of like, hey, I care, I love you, I don't want you to like not value yourself in this way. I honestly knew your heart was coming from a good place. I honestly knew that your heart was coming from a place of like, I care about you, and I can see you're going down a road that's not who you are. Yeah. And I appreciated that. And the beauty of it also wasn't like, hey, now fix it. Like, you were willing to, like, what is it? Is there something deeper going on? Whatever.
Right. Let's start with the pants.
Do I need to take you shopping?
Yeah. I think that was her whole ploy. Yeah. If I wear these long enough, he'll eventually say, we need to get you some new clothes. Like, you can't take it.
I thought they were cute pants. Honestly, that's the only reason why I wore them. I thought they were cute. But I understood because I loved you and I understood that, like, hey, it wasn't giving. I was willing to give them up. You know what I'm saying?
Gotta have compromise in love.
Sometimes we can, be self-deceived and we can think we are killing it in a particular thing. And I appreciate that you were looking out for me to be like, hey, that's not it.
Man, the worst deception in the world, self-deception.
But I want to like piggyback off of something you said when you're like, guys, you can't let yourselves go and then be like, hey, I want this or that from you. It's not just the physical part for ladies. I think if anything, what weighs more on us as far as like us wanting to, get down in the bedroom with you or affectionate is the things that you're doing.
Yeah, 100%.
And showing in like how you're loving on us, not so much just because like how you're looking like that. Not matters, but yes, we want to make sure you're taking care of yourself as well. But it's also like, are you still a listening ear? Are you still doing the things that, you once did? Are you, encouraging me? Are you adding value to me by,
Well, are guys still doing what they did when they did what they had to do to get them?
Yeah.
And that's the thing is, it's like, oh my God, she used to be all over me during the honeymoon phase. And when we first got married, well, yeah, that's because you were being super sweet and affectionate. Now it's been years and you're like, hey, get over here. And it's like, it doesn't work that way.
And we want to
I wish it did.
Yeah. And we also want to make sure, like, you are still, like, showing up in life, right? Are you still, have you, and I think there's a balance. Like, yes, have you still, have goals and ambition and drive and different things like that? Or have you just kind of, like, stop showing up in life? And, like, part of it is, like, making sure as your helpmate, hey, is everything okay? Like, are you good?
Right.
And if you are good, then we need to talk. You know what I mean? Make sure, like, hey, bro.
Well, because it's really easy in any relationship, whether it's a married relationship, whether it's a friendship, whether it's parenting, whether it's even at your job. What starts to happen is you just get real comfortable with familiarity, and it just starts to become a thing to where you're like, oh yeah. It's just them.
Yeah, I'm so glad
it's
you
like,
said that.
It's just them. It doesn't matter anyway. I don't have to. I don't. It's the old adage. It's like home is the place where you go.
I know
when
they
you want to
love
stop
me.
being nice.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah, it is awful. But that's what people say. It's like, that's where we go. So we, I don't have to be nice anymore. And it's like, no. Your home should be the place where you are the nicest, the people that you care about, the people that you love, the people that you, just do your life with and spend life with. Those are the people you need to love the hardest.
Absolutely. Yeah, you don't disrespect or do the ones that, are closest to you dirty.
Yeah. And continuing on, maintaining that, being that type of person and continuing on.
Yeah. But that's relationship part of it. And I'm glad you said not falling into familiarity. I can't say it today. Okay. Anyways.
Being familiar with each other.
Yes. Everybody has that word. Sometimes it trips them up. So I'm not going to try and say it. We know the word we're talking about that we have to make sure that we don't fall into. But like you said, it's not just with our spouses, whether we're married or dating. But I also do think that we should brush on, our children as well.
Yeah, you do need to. Your kids are ever changing, right? It was great when they were younger. I say it all the time, but it's like back when they were younger, popsicles fix problems, right? They follow you, give them a popsicle. You do something, you give them a popsicle. And as they've gotten older, I'm not saying popsicles don't help.
Yeah.
But it doesn't fix the problem like it used to. And so you have to realize that they're changing, that love, how it's expressed is changed. Moments of tough love has changed. There's just all kinds of, and not being familiar with them, that they're still the, we can sometimes still see them as 5 years old, but they're not that way anymore. And so, and in your life and your kids and everything else, it's like, well, my kids are older now. Maybe you're listening to this podcast and you're like, my kids are in their 30s or whatever it is. Cool. There's still a change. Don't become so familiar with them, and realize that they are individuals and they are people and they have hopes and dreams that maybe you think that they should have the hopes and dreams that you have for them, but they have their own now.
I love the fact that you say they're still individuals, because I think sometimes especially when they're smaller, you can forget that. When they're smaller ages, you can forget that they're individuals. Now, of course, babies, we understand they're babies, but as far as like when they start to grow up and can say what they like or don't like. And that's one of the things I think that we do have to be intentional about when it comes to our children, because just because, they're our children doesn't mean we shouldn't care, or, and for me, it's like, get into their world, Our boys are very much so athletes. They love basketball. And, for whatever reason, when God chose me to have boys, he knew that. He knew that he was going to have that in them. And I am very much so a girl's girl. I love the makeup. I love fashion. I love it all. I could care less about sports. But because I love them and I care about them and I want to keep making sure that we have dialogue, we have conversation, I'm still a part of their world, I'm going to learn how to love what they love. I'm not going to do that only because it's not something that I'm interested in.
Yeah. And that goes along with everything, right? In marriage, as you're getting older, or as, the longer the years are, people change.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, yes.
And you have to relearn and love again. Relearn and love again. And it's a daily practice that has to happen all the time.
I'm glad you said that because that was one of the things that someone had, I believe, if I remember correctly, had posted on that post that we made as far as we want to hear from you is, when you're married and you're in a relationship for a long time with someone, how do you grow together? Because you do change. The person that I was at the age of 2021 when we got married, I'm about to be 40 this year. I am not that same woman, So there are certain things that I was interested in or wanted or growth or life, whatever has happened, that has changed me. And same for you.
Yeah.
But if we keep operating off of what used to be and how they used to be, then I think that's how we grow apart. I think constantly doing the check-ins or just kind of saying like, hey, communicating like we were talking about last week. Hey, like, these are things that I don't like anymore. These are things that I do like, just to make sure that we are growing together. Like, hey, why don't we do this together or whatever,
Yeah, because you may change, right? People do this all the time, right? You're a certain way for a certain while. Let's take your health, for example. Maybe you never liked working out, and then as you gotten older, it's kind of a necessity, and then kind of you fall in love with it, right? And so you're working out all the time, and you're working out all the time, and you're working out all the time. And the other person's like, hey, I like the person that we didn't work out all the time, or we were at home, couch potatoes, or whatever it is. Right. It's like, now I have to fall in love with what you're falling in love with. And how you're changing, I need to change with you, because that's really all it's about.
What about, because this is something I thought about, because we talked about loving, different ways you can love in relationships. What about the times when you feel like they're not being in the situation where you want to love on them? Does that make sense? Like, for example, like what if they are kind of being in, like they're going through a season where they're not displaying, like the best version of themselves aren't at the forefront? How do you love someone through that?
I think you have to grace people, because regardless if they're your spouse or a boss or they're a friend or whatever, everybody goes through things in life. You talk about it, but you got to grace people. I mean, I think that's the easiest thing to do. There's moments in my life where I've realized it's tough for people to love me. Mm-hmm. And so they have grace for me in those moments. I think you have to reciprocate that, and you gotta grace people back.
Do you feel like there's ever a time where because we have boundaries, right? Which we'll talk at a different time on a different podcast episode. But is there ever a time where you say, okay, I have graced you, I have loved you through this, trying to love you through this? Is there a point in a conversation that needs to be had where you say, hey, okay, a change needs to take place?
Yeah, 100%. I think you have to have that conversation. If it's like they're not hearing you, go see a marriage counselor, or go see, you know what I mean? Get a third party that's involved that can look at it, not for so much. Sometimes when you're in if you ever in an airplane, right, it looks totally different from a view from 30,000 feet, right? When you're on the ground, it's 2 miles to somewhere. When you're in an airplane, it looks like it's just drive right there and you're right there, right?
The vantage point's different.
Vantage point's totally different. And I think sometimes people have to have a third party that comes in when you get to that state. You have to have that third party that comes in that says, hey, wait a second. I'm looking at this from a totally different viewpoint. Here's what I would recommend.
Mm-hmm. And would you just do that with relationships that you find close? And then as far as like if it is a boss, and you had that conversation, do you still recommend a third party to come in?
No, I think if it's I think it's different if it's like your boss or whatever it is, and you've had conversations, and then they're not going to change, and they're not going to change. To me, if you're with a spouse or you're somebody like that, you're exhausting all options. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like spouse, parent.
Right, you're exhausting all options with that kind
I
of
agree
stuff.
with that.
But a boss, I mean, just go get another job.
Yeah,
there's plenty of jobs.
That's real.
Well, hey, listen, this podcast has been a lot of fun.
It has.
And so we want you to share it with people, let people know about it. It's on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Share it, let people know about it. Such a great time.
It was. I really enjoyed it.
It was a great Valentine's Day. So happy Valentine's Day,
happy
everybody.
Valentine's Day. Make sure you go out, do something special. If you don't go out, you can always do a date night in.
Yes. And we'll talk about that too later on.
Yeah.
Not now. Keep you on the hook. But thank you so much for joining us today. Share it, like it, tell your friends about it.
Yes. And until next time, we'll see you then.